Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today I want to do something a little bit different. I feel a little bit inspired and I kind of want to start looking towards 2023 as we are aware that the newest patch that comes out in November is going to be the last for the year. So any DLC hopes that we have been moved to next year, which kind of makes sense. They want to just fix up Immortal Empires before they start adding more to it. I still don't know why, considering that, well, you know, everything with Champions of Chaos worked out really well, so yeah, but let's not look towards that, let's look towards the future. So we know two things. They did say that they have two teams working on DLC and that they are looking to make DLC more often for Total War Warhammer 3. So what I'm really hoping for is at least 3 or 4 DLCs next year, as right now during the whole world stopping we only had one, and yeah, you can kind of feel the droughts coming in, not just as a content creator, but as a person who actually enjoys playing the game. Sometimes it's just great to have other things come in. So let's discuss what we can expect. I think that we're going to get at least 3 DLCs, because it just kind of makes sense. A race pack, a lord pack, and then possibly a lord pack once again, as it kind of makes sense, as some of those races in Warhammer 3 are kind of suffering. Kislev, Cafe, Ogres, you know, and there's a few others that could do with a little bit more help too. The first DLC that we can expect next year is likely to be the Chaos Dwarfs, mostly because, well, a lot of their stuff kind of leaked as time has progressed. I mean, ever since Warhammer 3 released, this is the base game, there were loads of data mining. Hell, some of the voice lines even leaked too. Well, the intro voice lines. And it's pretty easy to just think, yeah, this is going to be, what, 4 Legendary Lords? That's been the most common thing when it comes to a race pack DLC. So, you know, like the Vampire Coast and the Tomb Kings. I'm not talking about the Ogre Kingdoms and Norska. I don't know why, but I'm thinking between 3 and 4 Legendary Lords, because the Chaos Dwarfs don't really have that many characters, but I imagine that they'll probably want to just get it out there. That's if we get like a near complete roster like we did with the Tomb Kings, because the Tomb Kings aren't really complete too, and I think that they'll get DLC in the future, so it's very likely that we might see the same thing, and that we'll get a Chaos Dwarf DLC a few years down the line. You never know, you never know. This is just some speculation, obviously. Next, I feel like Norska will come after the Chaos Dwarfs, which, yes, there will be some Chaos fatigue, but let's be honest, Norska does really need some help, as they were the pre-order incentive for Warhammer 2, and yes, they've had a bit of an update to make them a little bit better, but let's be honest, they do need help. They really do need help, and it's about time that they got fixed up for good now, as you can't really have a race being that bad for this long. It's something that just kind of frustrates me. And I believe that 2 things can happen here for Norska. The first is another culture pack very similar to Champions of Chaos, but rather than it focusing on the god-touched warriors, it would separate Norska into tribes of the north, so effectively renaming the race. We've talked about this before, where we'd have a Norska and a Kol, a Hung, all the different chaotic tribes, which wouldn't be fully chaos, they would be falling on the line of chaos, but they would focus on monsters, their own ideologies, their own unit types, and so on. These units themselves would be visually different from each other, as we know, like for example the Hung or the Kurgans would have more of a Attila type of feel more than anything else, whereas the Norscans still look like Vikings. You know, just separate it and get all the different tribes in as mini factions, mini race packs. This could easily mean we could get a bunch of reskinned units, which kind of worked out quite well, just obviously with a bit of a different aesthetic feel, and then maybe 2, 3, maybe even 4 Legendary Lords, just to have these new Norskans brought in, and they can be separated to different locations, right? So we've already got 2 in Norska, though I feel Wulfric should be moved. But then we could have characters like Crom the Conqueror or Tamokon, but I believe Tamokon will probably go to Nurgle, in like the areas of the northern steppes, the western steppes, characters in maybe Skeggy. It depends where you'd want to go. Obviously, they'd have multiple start positions because you'd have them in the Realm of Chaos map, and then you would have them in the Immortal Empires, unless they do an Immortal Empires only DLC, which I very much doubt would happen anytime soon. This would also mean that the attention could be fully pushed into Norska, like what happened with the Warriors of Chaos, so you'd get more value for your money. The Champions of Chaos DLC very much proved that if they just focused on one specific faction when it came to a rework DLC, the rework itself can be absolutely massive. And yeah, I'd love to see more of this, especially for races like Norska, hell, the Lizard talented men would really benefit from a massive rework of this scale. The second option, and this is why this section's so long, it's because there's two potential ways on how Nosuke could be dealt, and that would be a traditional Lord pack. Because, well, let's be honest, Cafe and Kislev both need a little bit of extra flavor. A lot of people saying Cafe need it more, but I think that Kislev do. My only concern is that, you know, it might take attention away from Norska, who really needs it, but I can also appreciate the fact that both of the others do need a little bit more flavor too. And hey, maybe I'm just panicking a lot more, because obviously in Warhammer 2, there was more attention to one than the other in the DLC, but in all fairness, that could have been changed, and there could be an even split of attention for both when it comes to DLC in Warhammer 3, because they might have learned from their past mistakes. When it comes to DLC 3, now they need to do a proper matchup. This is like a famous matchup. We've had a few of them in the past, you know, with Belagar versus Skarsnik, Grom versus Elfarion. You know, these are ones that actually just make a lot of sense. And for here, I'm thinking Nurgle. Yeah, Nurgle versus the Empire, which would be really, really good, because obviously this would mean Tamukan versus Elseth, a really big matchup from the Tamukan series, which already has some Tamukan-based troops, so it already makes sense that his book will be touched upon in the future. It also makes a lot of sense to have Tamukan in Nurgle as opposed to being a Warrior of Chaos, because we already have a lot of Warriors of Chaos, but we've only got one legendary Lord for Nurgle, and Nurgle is in the worst spot, I'd say, out of all the 4 demon factions, well, the mono-god demon factions. Plus, it also brings some much-needed attention for the Empire, which, let's be honest, they kind of need a little bit of extra boost too. The Empire and Nurgle not needing full reworks, but rather some minor changes here and there, and just some new characters, some new units, and just a little bit of fun. So I think this would work out really, really well. And yes, if the Norska versus, say, Cafe or Kislev DLC would be a Lord pack, yeah, it wouldn't be a famous matchup, because there's not that many famous Norskans, and there's not really that many established new Kislev characters and new Cafe characters that have a lot of beefs with Norska, so even if it was new lore, it wouldn't really be big hype worthy, I guess, for the player base. But when it comes to timings, this is something kind of interesting. I could see everything being released in Q1, Q2, and Q3 in the same order that I've been going through the video. So Chaos Dwarfs Q1, the next one in Q2, and the next one in Q3. I'm really hoping this stays the same way, because it could lead to a possible Q4 DLC, as, well, Warhammer is their big money maker, so they'll probably want to milk it as much as possible. I mean, for all we know, it could just be 2 DLCs a year, which I guess would be fine if they're big like Champions of Chaos. But I would be very worried if they said that we're going to get DLC more often and it's just 2 DLC a year. If we do get them per quarter, that means that we could get a 4th DLC, and that would probably be another Lord pack. I know some people would start saying Ind, Nippon, and stuff like that, but I don't imagine that we'd get 2 race packs a year. I imagine that we'd probably get a race pack once every year, or maybe once every year and a half. But hey, I think this is kind of like realistic. I'm just thinking about it for the future, because it's a bit annoying that we're not getting anything this year, which is kind of disappointing. But then again, you know, they want to focus on fixing up the game, and then they close down during December, so it makes no sense to release a DLC right before they close down, because if there's a lot of problems, there won't be anyone in the office. Let's be very honest with ourselves. They do have issues when they do launches and stuff, so it's probably a smarter thing. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I just want to have a little bit of a chat, really. I think that this would just be kind of nice to discuss and do something different, you know?